Hello, everyone, and thank you for signing on for the workshop, A is for Audit. I am Joan Wabnick, New York State PTA Field Support Coordinator, and I have a seat on the New York State PTA Board of Directors. This presentation will give you the information you need to properly conduct an audit and also to give you information as to why it is necessary. Auditing involves financial transactions through records to make sure that receipts have been properly accounted for and expenditures made as authorized in the minutes, and in conformity with PTA bylaws, standing rules, and budget. The audit objective. The objective of the audit is to certify the accuracy of your records in your PTA. The purpose of the audit is to provide reasonable assurance that an organization's financial statements are free of material misstatements and are prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles. Remember, all PTAs, units, and councils need to have an accurate accounting of all PTA funds. PTA bylaws indicate when an audit is to be made, its procedure, and when it should be reported to the membership. Record books should be audited at least once a year, and books should also be audited if the officer is not elected and you have a new treasurer, or at any time that a new officer would assume their duties, and of course, any time that it is deemed necessary. Planning for your audit. So again, your unit and council bylaws indicate when an audit is to be made, its procedure, and when it is reported. In your bylaws, it allows the president to appoint members to the audit committee. Bylaws, Article 12, Section 8. Section 8, an audit committee of no fewer than 3 members or a professional auditor shall be appointed by the executive board at least 2 weeks prior to the date the audit report is due. This committee shall examine the treasurer's accounts and satisfy they are correct, sign a statement of that fact to be presented to the adoption by the membership at the first meeting of the succeeding school year. And just to note, a professional auditor would only be necessary if the accuracy cannot be determined, and it should be someone who is familiar with nonprofits. Again, when to do the audit? Before the end of the fiscal year or before the annual meeting? When any authorized check signer is added or deleted on any bank account. Any change in treasurer. No treasurer should accept the books without an audit if they are new. And any time deemed necessary to protect the funds of your unit and council. The bylaws, the audit committee is selected according to the bylaws, not less than 3 members, appointed by the president with approval of the executive committee, appointed at least 30 days before the last meeting of the year. People not on the committee would be the current treasurer, the current president, any authorized check signer, and any relative of a person with signature authority. Again, Section 8 would explain this in your bylaws. An audit committee of no fewer than 3 members or a professional auditor shall be appointed by the executive board at least 2 weeks prior to the date the audit report is due. This committee shall examine the treasurer's accounts and satisfy that they are correct, sign a statement of that fact to be presented for adoption by the membership at the first meeting of the succeeding school year. So I'm reading that again because Section 8 explains exactly what you need to do. The audit committee. So items that you need for audit. The treasurer shall provide the following. It is up to the treasurer to provide the following information so that the audit committee can do their work properly. Report of the last audit, with vouchers and receipts attached, a prior 990 tax filing, the last audit report, a checkbook, canceled checks, bank statements from the past year, deposit receipts, a treasurer's book or ledger, or whatever, if you use an electronic ledger, then access to that ledger is necessary. Monthly treasurer's reports, minutes showing that you adopted the budget and that the treasury reports are presented, minutes that indicate any adjustments to the budget, the annual financial report, which comes at the end of the year, current bylaws and procedures, and of course, money handling procedures. Conducting the audit. Check the minutes and verify the following: adoption date of the budget, approval of budget for expenditures not addressed in the original budget. And again, this should be noted in the minutes. Approval of fundraisers. Financial report presented at all meetings. You want to verify the following: ending, beginning balances on statements coincide with the dates of your meetings. Each meeting, a budget report should be presented to your membership so they can know exactly how the money is being spent and if it is accounted for properly. Check a report was presented to each fundraiser with expenditures and profits for each event. It is very important, if you have an event that you are collecting funds for, that you create a spreadsheet so that you know how much was brought in either at the event or possibly on Member Hub, and to make sure that those funds were deposited into the PTA account in a timely manner. Comparison of the amounts in financial reports to ledger totals and verify that they match. And of course, a list of outstanding checks from the last audit. You should have a procedure in place that accounts for how long you will hold a check before it is put back into the account or before somebody cashes it. Make certain that the state portions of the membership dues have been kept separate from other receipts and payments and have been made to the state office on a regular basis. Make certain that money collected for special projects, scholarships, and council dues have been dispersed. Article 5 in your bylaws, relationship with the National PTA and the New York State PTA. This PTA shall keep such permanent books and accounts and records as shall be sufficient to establish the items of gross income, receipts, and disbursements of the association, including specifically the number of its members, the dues collected from its members, and the amount of dues remitted to New York State PTA. Such books of account or records shall at all reasonable times be open to inspection by an authorized representative of New York State PTA, or where directed by the Committee on State and National Relationships by a duly authorized representative of the National PTA. Because we want to make certain that the funds that are due New York State PTA or membership are not part of your funds in your budget. Again, memberships should always be kept separate from PTA funds. Set up a working copy of the audit report, and an example can be found in the resource guide. Section 5A, page 20, and a link included in the slide. It can be found on the New York State PTA website at nyspta.org. The resource guide is also found under Leaders, and All of this information here today is found in, again, section 5A, Finance, page 17 and page 18. So we want to reconcile the bank statements, which should be done monthly. We want to add up receipts and disbursements. We want a balance on hand must equal balance in the checking account. And again, all this information is in the resource guide. Once the committee has established that everything is in order, or possibly not in order, it is time to prepare the statement. You can make a statement that the financial accounting is satisfactory, draw a line across the checkbook and ledger where the audit concludes, sign and date, use a different color ink that was used in the ledger to record signatures and dates. Once the review is complete and the committee is confident all is in order, it is time for the statement. A sample statement could read, the audit committee has examined the records of ABCPTA for the period time covered and found them to be correct, and what the balance on hand, and all members of your audit committee are required to sign the report. Now, if you've done an audit beginning in April, then you would do the next audit the following year in April. So even though it states that you do the audit at the end of the year, it can be done at another month within the calendar year. If your annual meeting is in April, then you would have wanted to have a audit before that annual meeting. And of course, if there's any errors or anything while reviewing the procedures, you might be required to make a statement listing all of the errors. If you are looking at the ledgers, if you are looking at and you're seeing mistakes, if you're seeing crossouts, all of these things can be a red flag. Okay, we want to make sure that everything is written in pen, that every penny is accounted for. So if you start to see that, if you start to see a lot of checks that haven't been cashed, or checks that have bounced, or items that say insufficient funds, if you're starting to get a call, the president might receive a call from someone who's issued a scholarship check, and of course, the check bounces. Okay, these things are all red flags. Now, if this starts to happen within the beginning of the year, where you see that bills are not being paid, or again, checks are bouncing, if you're not receiving budget reports at your monthly meetings, it may be time to set up an audit committee and do an audit within the beginning in that month of the year. Some of the financial records that you should be looking at are a ledger. It can be on paper, it can be the checkbook, it can be electronic. Changes should be lined through and corrected. So if later on in our presentation, we will look at how to do a reconciliation. And if during the reconciliation, it does not match, then it may be time to do an audit. Entries should never be erased. All entries should be in ink, and computer records should be backed up and printed hard copy and retained. And the treasurer should have access. I recommend one other person. The president should have access. If there's any kind of password, it should be kept within the executive committee. If during the audit you find there is many irregularities, this kind of statement can be issued. The audit committee has examined the records of the treasurer of ABCPTA listing the period that it was looked at. The current balance on hand is the following irregularities has been found, and list all the irregularities. If you see again, checks bouncing, bills not being paid, deposits from events not being listed. And we say that when this happens and you need to contact someone to help you with this, the first thing I find that people say is, we didn't know. And we thought that, he or she was a good treasurer and were doing things correctly. So again, the audit isn't to say, I got you. The audit is to make sure that if you do have a problem and it happens in the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year, that you will catch that mistake before it gets out of hand. You can list the following steps to correct and improve financial reporting. Again, if things are missing from the checkbook or it's not showing deposit slips, you can all make a list of all these things that should be done. And the audit committee is certainly entitled to recommend anything to make the process go smoother. At the meeting, the annual meeting, a member of the audit committee or the secretary would read the report and president calls for the appropriate action. When we're looking at checks, the things we have to look for are 2 signatures are present, documentation for each check issued, a receipt plus a voucher. Okay, a voucher can be a piece of paper. You can have something that's 2 copies so that the treasurer can hold 1 copy. And the person that you were issuing the check for gets a copy with their check. Voided checks are noted in a ledger. Verify that the payee, the amount, and the budget category. Verify that all PTA accounts exist. Verify that checks should not be made payable to cash. Every check should be made out to an individual party or a company, okay, never to cash. If you're having an event, sometimes they have a DJ and the DJ would like to be paid in cash or from proceeds that you collect that night. That is not permissible. You need to give that person an actual check, have them sign the voucher that they received it. Check numbers and dates should be in sequence, and no transfer of funds from PTA accounts to a private account. Okay, you should pay people in by check only. Okay, you can't use Venmo. You can't submit your PTA funds to a private Venmo account. It's not permitted in a nonprofit. You also wanted to check that the tax forms and everything has been filed correctly. Each PTA, and including the unit and council, must file the proper tax forms yearly. So it could be a 990, it could be a 990N, a 990EZ, or a 990. You must check that they are filed correctly and confirmation was received. The easiest one is, of course, the 990, sometimes referred to it as the 990 postcard. It can be accessed right online. Again, on the New York State PTA website, there is a program called file990.org, which can assist you in that. You do need, when filing your tax forms, you need your tax ID number, your EIN number. If you are not sure of that number, it is on the first page of your bylaws, but you can also contact your region if you're not sure where to get that information or if you have it correctly. Should anything arise when filing your tax forms, you need to contact your region treasurer. If you need to know any of those numbers, you can again contact your region treasurer or your region director, and they can assist you in obtaining those numbers. If you're filing and the number that you have is not allowing you to complete the filing, then again, you need to contact your region director or region treasurer, and they can assist you. All PTAs, units, and councils must file a tax year 4 1/2 months after the end of your fiscal year. If not filed for 3 consecutive years, your unit or council will lose their tax exempt status. Okay, and we don't want that to happen, because to regain that tax exempt status is very difficult, and the forms are very lengthy, and the information provided is can be overwhelming. So we ask that you make sure that all of these items are done and completed in the proper timeframe. If you are not sure that it has been filed, you can look on the irs.gov website. You must have the correct name of your PTA, and you must have the EIN number. The audit report, now that you've looked at everything, you've either verified that everything's correct and you're issuing that statement, or if you found a lot of things that are correct, as we discussed before, you found that checks have bounced and bills aren't paid, and you've had at least 3 large fundraisers or events, and you notice that there's no deposits coinciding with those. Then, of course, that is part of your audit report. You present to the association at the first general meeting after completion of an audit. The audit is adopted by the association at this time. At that time, anyone can ask questions. It indicates the outcome of the audit. The report is signed by each member, attached to the annual report that covers the entire year. If you find irregularities in the records, the treasurer should be available for questions. You might ask the treasurer for various information, for additional records or information. This is especially important if the treasurer is taking over from a previous treasurer. And of course, you can always contact your region PTA for additional assistance. Any investigation by the audit committee must be kept confidential other than the report. The following reports will be required by the PTA insurance should be necessary due to loss of any theft of funds or loss of funds, and you need to submit a claim to AIM Insurance. So the annual audit, the monthly reconciliation, minutes listing audit and reconciliation statements, insurance claim made to AIM for embezzlement, robbery, or theft will be denied if the reconciliation and the audit are not complete. Again, verify math and clerical accuracy, compare check payees, proper membership is paid to New York State, deposit dates in relation to fundraising events, deposits were made promptly and accurately. The resources for this presentation are in the resource guide at nyspta.org, National PTA Money Matters, and of course you can cut and paste this into your browser. Thank you for signing on. Of course, if you have any questions, this is my email address and you can certainly contact me. Thank you.